Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dorothy here from the CCMA. You're very welcome to our webinar this Friday morning, the 12th of February. On screen, you'll see Niamh from WSI, who, as always, is providing our technical support, and Alison Creed of the Coaching Creed. And this is our third webinar in a series of 4 webinars on leading your team into 2021. And just to mention, for those, I say few new names, I was going to say new faces today, but new names today, which we're delighted to see joining us. The recordings of the previous 2 webinars are available on the CCMA events page, and you just go down past the calendar previous events and you'll find them there, and a copy of Alison's presentation. She's very kindly shared all the previous decks that she's used. And from about 2 weeks' time, we're actually going to have a very comprehensive library, because since last March we've had nearly more than 50 webinars on a range of topics that I think will be of interest to members on, leadership, coaching, culture, and well-being, etc. So what we've developed is a much more user-friendly way of people accessing those recordings and presentations that they may then be able to use in your own organizations for training and development, or just even team building purposes. So as soon as they're up and running and available in the way that we want to make it easy for you to find them on a particular topic, I'll let you know, and we'll be sending an email out to the database. But in the meantime, as I say, they're all on the events page. You just scroll down into previous events. So this morning's topic, I'll just remind myself, is again in the context of leading your team into 2021. And Alison is going to talk about balancing the individual versus the team needs, and the importance of fairness and how to lead with trust. And as always, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So for those of you familiar with all of these platforms, which I'm sure everybody is now, you'll see over to the right hand side the little chat area where you can put in a question, a comment, an observation. And I know, Alison, you have a couple of questions, and you have a poll as well during the webinar, I think. So I'm going to hand over. Enjoy the webinar. Best of luck, Alison. And as questions or comments come through, as always, I'll share them with you.
Great, thanks a million, Dorothy and Niamh. Okay, great. Welcome, guys. Number 3 in this series now. These are 30-minute webinars. Well, I think we've got about 29 minutes left. And really, the idea of all of my webinars is just to spark ideas and debate and get us thinking. That's really it. It's not around telling you, hopefully, it's not around telling you, or you don't feel like it's me telling you what to do. In the end of the day, we're all individuals. All of our situations are different. So it's really just talking through some ideas, and hopefully you might get 1 or 2 things from today's presentation which might start the ball rolling for you around how you want to lead your team. And that's really what this is about. This is a resource for you. So I'm going to now start with my little slideshow. There we go. And I hope you can see that. Oh.
Yeah, we can see, Alison.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm just trying. Is it showing just one slide or lots of slides?
Showing the one, so you know the normal little icon. Yeah, perfect. That's it.
Great. All right, great. So let's start. All right. So we're going to talk about balancing the individual and versus the team needs. And the interesting point here is that we think about these things necessarily as being perhaps in competition with each other, when in reality they're not. Basically, as individuals, we want to be treated as individuals, we want to have control, we want to have some autonomy, we want to be able to work our own way, but also as social animals, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. I mean, humans are social animals. We started in small tribal groups, and we need and crave social interaction and belonging, and boy, do we know that. Considering what's happened to us over the last year. So the idea of you just manage people as individuals, or you just manage people as part of a team, the reality is that we need to do both, and we need both as managers and leaders. We need both. We need to feel, that we have some agency ourselves, but we also need to feel part of that bigger team, and that bigger team may be our family, it may be our peers within work, it may be a management team, and obviously it'll be our team that we manage as well. So today we're going to look at a reality check. So what do your team need from you, and what do you need from them? This will actually be individual, but so I'm just going to put some ideas out there, and you can talk through and with your team and think about yourself about what you need. Fairness and trust, the research will tell us, are the main drivers for collective buy-in into anything. And that would be, if you look at a lot of sports teams and successful companies and successful teams, this idea of fairness and building trust really help when we look at how best to manage teams. I'll talk about how to create some win-win outcomes for those competing needs, and then some practical tips for balanced leadership. As Dorothy said, any questions or suggestions, feel free to put them in the comments box. Okay, we're going to do a quick poll. And this is really asking you, what stage is your team at now? Everything's contextual. So I'll just go through these. Forming is really where you may be new to the team, you may be a new leader, or you may have a relatively new team and you're feeling your way and you haven't sort of settled into yet how you're working with each other. The next one is norming. That's where, everything's going okay. You're keeping up with your work, but, you're not really feeling this sort of synergy about, cooperation and collaboration. And storming is where you're hitting all your goals, you're having fun, you're performing really well. So give us an idea about where you are at this stage. No judgment. No matter where you are is where you are. We got to start from where we are. So if you could just click one of those. Are they coming in?
Yeah, they're coming in now. I'll give everyone 10 more seconds or so.
Love these polls. I'm going to ask a few questions later on as well, so just to get some more feedback. Cool. Okay. So 7% of you are forming, 53% norming, and 40% storming. Whoa, they're great figures, aren't they? Listen, fantastic for everyone, because considering what we've been through in the last year, the fact that you're norming, i.e. keeping up with your work, working quite well, that's great. And hopefully you get some ideas about how to encourage more collaboration, perhaps. And then the storming, wow, 40%. That is so cool. Proud of you guys. It's blinking brilliant. Okay. Now, why won't my, oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's look at what's happening now. This is for you, everyone's individual. But let's look first of all at the context. So what is your company culture? Is it competitive? Is it collegiate? Is it, supportive? I once worked in a company where the culture was literally, it was called elbows out, which basically meant incredibly competitive, very siloed, and that's what they wanted. So depending on what your context is, in terms of creating your team and your culture within the team, it's very hard to create a culture within a team that is the total opposite of the culture within your company. Now, there's no judgment on any culture, whatever your culture, the company culture is. Realistically, you're probably better off to try and support that within your team. Because that way you're not having a situation where, the people feel safe within the team, but it's us against the rest of the company. It's not very productive. So what's the nature of your work? If you've got pooled work, like for instance, in a lot of outsource centers, depending on what type of team you use, you may have totally pooled work. So you have a queue of emails or calls or whatever it may be, and everybody does the same type of work. There might be different skills and stuff, but everybody in that team is doing the same type of work. Well, then there's a different, the context is different from if you've got projects where people are working together on projects, or individual work where you manage a team of lots of individuals who manage their own work. And then obviously what stage your team is at, and then what skills and knowledge and experience the people within your team have. Another one is the openness to change, openness to diverse views. So, do you work, is your team very consensus based? Is your team a situation where people don't like to have a contrary view? Everyone likes to agree. And then the other piece is like, what's the attitude to risk? Depending on what industry you're in and what type of work you do, the attitude to risk, that's around the attitude to risk of making changes or trying different ways to do things. Like there may be, for some of you, you may actually have statutory rules that you have to abide by. If you think about within COVID, what's the attitude to risk there? Maybe nobody works from the office, or maybe everybody still has to work from an office. Totally depends. And then look at how you lead now. And the really important thing about this is, how are you spending your time? And we'll talk a little bit about this later, but mainly, how are you spending your time in relation to what's the split between leading the individual or managing the individual and managing the team? What do you talk about when you're with individuals? What do you talk about when you're with teams? Do you ever talk about how you're leading people? Do you talk about whether people are comfortable with it? Comfortable is probably the wrong word. Whether people like the way you're leading them, and talk about how you work together as a team. This one is really important. What do you reward or praise? So if you're always rewarding and praising individuals and not the team, well then obviously, you know, people don't feel like that it's worth working together as a team. Do you treat everyone the same? This is an interesting question, because obviously you don't necessarily treat everyone the same, because everyone's different, but people need to feel that they've been treated the same, that there's a fairness. And then the other piece, that this is really personal. What feedback have you had from your team members, from your manager, from your peers, from past places that you've worked about how you lead? Because in order to really shine and blossom and balance leadership, you need to know yourself. So here's my tip, and I'm being challenging today. Do a context check today. Just look at those contexts and ask yourself the questions. So what is your context? And then next week, take a bit of time every day to note how you lead by keeping a diary. So basically, the most important thing is how you're spending your time. How you're spending your time. Is it with individuals? Is it within smaller groups? Is it with the team? No judgment on how you're doing it, just reflection. So that you see what you're doing, and you start to look at, do you want to change any of it? Okay. So we talked about, I said earlier, we talk about understanding needs. And this is really around, these are sort of based on quite a lot, having done some research in this area. I tried to sort of distill down what do we need from each other? What are the needs that we need, that you need your individuals and your team to fulfill for you, and what they need from you. And here, basically, I'll talk you through. So the ones across the top are the leader. What does the leader need? And then on the left hand side, from the leader, what does the leader need from the individual? What does the leader need from the team? Okay, so from yourself, you really do need self-awareness and self-acceptance. You are who you are. It doesn't mean you can't change, but the way you lead has to be authentic to you. There's no point in trying to be a leader exactly the same as someone who from a personality standpoint is totally different. If you're not a mad extrovert, you're not going to be able to force yourself to lead like the cheerleader. But what you can do is you can look at what makes good leadership and what feels right for you. So what you as a leader need from your people individually is for them to perform, and you need for them, you need to trust them. From your team, you need performance, you need support, and this is one we forget about. We actually do need our team to have our back and to support us, and we need feedback. We also need feedback from the individual. What does the individual need? Well, from us as leaders, they need safety, and that really is around that fairness. They need trust. They need us to trust them. So trust is a two-way street. They need us to motivate them, and they need reward and recognition. Individually, they need autonomy and growth. That's what they're looking for. And from the team, they need that belonging. They need that to feel like they're part of the group. They need to learn from each other, and they really need the most important thing for an individual, and the most important thing for everyone really, is this safety need. So you can't thrive in a scenario, in a team where you don't feel safe, where you don't trust people and you don't feel that they have empathy. And then what do the team need from the leader? They need a vision. They need to know why they are doing what they're doing. They need us to be a role model. The most impactful thing, the most impactful thing on engagement for people is their leader, and how their leader treats them, and the role model behavior of the leader. If you want people to behave in a certain way, you need to model that behavior. They also need team recognition. So they need the team as a group to be recognized and rewarded. And this is really important because very few companies really reward the team, in particular financially. So we talk a great talk about wanting collaboration and cooperation and the synergies that are involved in it. And that's, you know, but we don't actually reward people as teams. In fact, a lot of the time what we do, and particularly with bonuses, is we give the manager a certain amount of money to dole out in bonuses, or the leader a certain amount of money to dole out in bonuses, which basically means that your people are in competition with each other, because you get more if you're perceived by your manager as being better. so you're in competition with the other people in your team. So what team need from individuals who are part of the team is openness, trust, performance, cooperation, and what the team need from the team as a whole. So what you get from being part of a team is that lovely group achievement, fun, and social inclusion, which is really important. So I've distilled these down. We have lots of other needs, and your individual people may have different needs. Just this is a slide from a presentation that I did a few months ago for the CCMA, basically reminding you that what are the engagement drivers for your individuals, and it can break down by generation, but of course it's also individual. So just have a look at that and you'll know what your team is made up of. And sometimes, you know, hopefully you also know what drives your individuals. Some people, it may be totally about, you know, work-life balance. It may be about feedback. It may be about knowing what their role is. It depends on each individual. Okay, so why is fairness important? So Niamh, can you show the video that I have there? So basically, that guy has done, like, if you look him up on YouTube, Frank de Waal is his name. There's some absolutely wonderful experiments there. It's all about human behavior. And basically what that shows you is that fairness is not just about, so in other words, it's not just about whether it's fair in terms of, you know, the general public. Fairness is actually about whether there's fairness within the group. So you can see how annoyed the monkey got, how quickly that as well. But the interesting thing about those experiments is that not only does the monkey who is getting the cucumber get irate and annoyed, but actually over time, they've also done other experiments. The other monkey who's being favored, actually, if given the choice, would prefer to share rather than always get the best thing. And what they show is that if those monkeys know each other and like each other, the propensity to share is even higher. And this is how we find out, I suppose. We look at, we test animals, but also how we learn a little bit about ourselves. So I guess the big pieces about human behavior in relation to managing or leading a team is that we are social animals. That's the way we're built. It's within our DNA. We are altruistic and empathetic. And that has been proven, like even with small babies as young as 1, you will see that they have something called the yawn mechanism, which basically is a precursor or the beginning of empathy, which is yawn contagion. If one person starts to yawn, then other people yawn, and little babies have it, you know, really, really young. And the altruistic, actually they call it an altruistic gene now, that it is part of the innate DNA of us being human, that we are altruistic and that we do like to help others. Also that we need connection. Some very controversial experiments done here back in the 30s, 40s and 50s about babies and how that need for connection, not only do we need it to get our needs, but actually we really need it from an emotional point of view. And they did experiments on babies where nobody touched them, and those children were so completely damaged in terms of all sorts of development. Like they were, because of the fact that you need that connection, and we need it as human beings, as grown-ups too. Trust, just a point about trust. There's been a lot of work done on trust and how important it is in terms of leadership, in terms of our feeling of connection and our feeling of belonging within an organization. And trust, there is a definition. A lot of research has been done, and what people say is, or what's been proven is that trust is a mixture. It's complex. It's based on credibility, and that credibility is, are you credible in what you say? So in other words, it's just that reliability is you'll do what you said you do, but credibility is, do you actually have the backup? Are you credible in what you say? In other words, do you know what you're talking about? Intimacy, and that's really about how close we are to each other, but also how vulnerable we are to each other. And so they're all the positives around trust. So the more credibility, the more reliable you are, and the closer you are to people, and you can build those things quite easily. Credibility by not talking bullshit. Reliability by doing what you say you're going to do. Intimacy by actually spending time and being vulnerable with your team. But then it's divided by it's self-orientation. And this piece is really interesting. And this is around how your team, the individuals and the team as a whole, perceive you to be self-oriented, how much they perceive you to be self-orientated. I've actually put in the slideshow at the end more information on this. But the idea, but this self-orientation is, are they doing it for me? Are they doing it for me and themselves, or are they just doing it for themselves? People are absolutely fine with there being some self-orientation, but they can't stand being manipulated. So if they believe that you're doing something to get your own way or just for your own benefit, well, then that will cut trust substantially. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying here is good for you to think about what the level of trust is with you and the individuals within your team and the team as a whole. And the interesting thing about trust is that you can really, really work on it. Okay, so my second tip here is ask your people about fairness in your next individual chat. Now, some of you'll go, "Ooh, how am I going to do that?" That's a bit outside my comfort zone. Will they be comfortable to actually say anything about it? Well, even just asking those questions and thinking about that is interesting, because if people aren't comfortable, well, then you need to try and think about ways to make them comfortable. And that may be doing an anonymous survey or something like that. And what I'd say here is, if you're not outside your comfort zone, you won't learn anything. So you do need to push yourself a little bit. And the talking about fairness, maybe you want to start, you just say, listen, you know, I've been thinking a lot about, you know, fairness, whether things whether things are fair around here, whether you think I'm fair within the team. You can say whether I think I'm fair with you.
Alison, just to give you a time check, we've 5 minutes.
Grand, that's fine. That's grand. So I know that this is not easy, but I would challenge you to do it, because I think what you'll get back as you open up and ask these honest questions is really good feedback. Okay, so poll 2, let's do this now. What have you done lately that has had most impact for an individual on your team? Take a minute to think about that. It doesn't matter how big or small it is, just where you've seen a really positive impact for a person on your team.
Yeah, and people can put the answers to that into the chat, guys. If you want to put it into the kind of area, you can put it in there.
Right. And I have another question. So, and this one is really what you've done lately that has the biggest impact or the most impact on your team, and you can put that into chat too. So, Tara, if there's stuff coming in, can you see any of it?
Not so far, but we give it a minute or two. I think I'm missing it.
Not to worry at all.
What I was going to say, actually, Alison, as an observation is, and I think we've all been there, we've managed to get through 30 minutes almost without mentioning COVID directly. But I mean, I think trying to keep up the fun and the sort of that camaraderie from a team has had a bit of a lull since Christmas, because I just think we're all in the same boat in terms of, you know, this is going on longer than we would have all liked or anticipated. So, like, how do you do that fun bit without making it just, I don't know, that it's, you know, it's too staged? And sorry, just 2 comments come in. Owen has said, helped develop prepper worker for a future role, which is fantastic. And Mandy promoted 2 senior members of the team to TL, positive for individuals and the team. And Julie listened to the individual.
Yeah, that's super. They're great. So that piece around helping somebody to get a role elsewhere and supporting people in promotion, they're all around that individual's growth. And that's a wonderful thing, not just for the individual, but as someone just said, it's a brilliant thing for your team, so that people can see that they can move ahead. And I love the listen, because I guess if I was to say one thing from how to lead a team is to listen more and talk less, both in your individual sessions and also in your team meetings. And an idea for team meetings is not to always lead the team meeting. Pass it around within the team and ask different people to lead the team meeting. If you have an agenda that you usually go through, that can be a starting point, but allow them to have some input into what else you might talk about. So that listening is really important. Dorothy, sorry, on the fun stuff, I did a webinar before Christmas on team cohesion that people, if they hadn't seen it, they might want to go back, and there was some great ideas about keeping the fun. I guess what I would say to you is, at the moment, I agree with you. There's a bit of a lull, and so it may be a situation where just allow things to happen, you know, rather than going in and trying to force fun. If it doesn't feel like it's working and it doesn't feel right, then don't do it. And just ask people how they're feeling and just go, okay, you know, does anybody want to do anything from a team perspective? Because sometimes, I know we talked about this before, that feeling of having to pretend you're having fun or having to, you know, fun being mandatory can be, you know, really triggering for some people and annoying. So I would definitely say, you know your team, and if you're feeling a certain way, maybe they are too. I'm not saying that they are, but there's no harm in actually talking about it. Listen, should we do something? What could we do?
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I know we mentioned previously that some teams have, you know, collaborated across teams, that have everybody, you know, there's a group of people interested in gardening, doing a book club, those sort of things that maybe have a bit of continuation on it, but as a way of people mixing. But also I think the idea of every member of the team gets a chance to say, well, this is what I'd like to do, and maybe they run with that for a particular week or 2 weeks or whatever.
And there's one thing that when the team is feeling a bit bland, lacking in energy, it's great to do something that you can do together as a team if it feels right, and something like, you know, something charitable, and not necessarily money. Maybe gather together stuff for homeless people. You know, somebody puts their hand up and you basically say, and the company might pay for the postage to bring all that stuff together. You know, just something practical that you can do to help other people as a team. It is a really nice way to bring people together.
Conscious of time, Alison, we're just at 11:30, so I don't know if you've...
Okay, no, that's fine. We've got 2 more slides. I'll be really quick. So competing needs, so how to create win-wins. This is all about talking to your team and finding out what they need. 2 things I'd say here: create a skills matrix. So this is basically saying what everyone's skills is, and share it so people know who they can call on. This is particularly good for a new team or people who don't know each other that well. And basically, not only does it make people feel good that they can say, this is what my skills are, this is what I can do, but it also helps when you're trying to get people to work together, so because they can identify themselves, who they can talk to. At daily stand-ups, I know somebody actually said that they do this on a previous call. What do I need? So I say at my daily stand-up what I'm working on, and I would say, and this is what I need from the team, and this is what I can give the team. And sometimes what I need from the team, maybe I don't need anything, I'm going to work individually today, and what I can give the team is, you know, I'm happy to have a coffee with anyone today if they want to talk through something. But it could be myriads of different things, but I think it's just a nice thing to get into the habit of. The other thing is acknowledge when needs compete and encourage flexibility. So discuss the elephant in the room and talk about how you can prioritize, and are there other ways to get it done. So my tip here is schedule a team meeting to discuss competing needs and how you want to handle them as a team before they happen. This is getting ahead of it. How are we going to work together as a team, and how are we going to deal with this situation? And then here I've got some practical tips. These are the ways that you have a balanced leadership. This is from a study by Wang and Howell, a very important study on transformational leadership. And basically what what came out of this study, which was a massive multifaceted study across lots of different companies, basically was that there was different, you know, as a leader, you need to have an individual and a team focus. And these are the top 4 or 5 or 6 areas that impact on both performance and engagement. So I'm not going to go through them all, but I'm going to just say that take one elephant from each and try next week, just one element. So maybe on the individual, praise regularly and precisely. So that means that when you're giving praise, you make it very precise for what the person achieved or did. And then on the team focus, take one and just do it. Try it next week. You don't have to be doing everything all the time. Give yourself a break, but maybe just take one element from each and try it next week. And when you do, think about then how did it work, and then the next week try something else. Okay, I'm aware we're out of time, but that's okay because we're at any questions.
Great, thanks, Alison. Yeah, conscious of time. No, I think that's really great. And just to know, because I normally get quite a few emails after these webinars, that we will have a copy of the presentation available for people to upload and download. I'm going to try and put on my camera, even though my Wi-Fi is really bad today for some reason. And I'm trying to remember what our last one is. It's this day 2 weeks, Alison, and I can't get the website up. I can't remember what the topic is, but it's
coaching. It's coaching.
It's coaching. So as I say, the previous two are there. This day 2 weeks, we have Alison back for the last in this series on coaching. Obviously, any questions or observations or feedback you'd like to give myself and Alison, please drop us an email and let us know. And just to also remind you, we have a webinar next Friday with Indeed, which is actually about the impact of the pandemic on the world of work. And there's some really insightful and useful research that I think people will enjoy and like to have a look at. So Alison, as always, thank you to Niamh, and thanks to everybody for their participation. Great to see you all here today, and hope you all have a lovely weekend and enjoy Valentine's Day for those who get to celebrate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Take care. Bye. Bye.